This is Arise America.
And U.S. senators have announced a deal to spend $10 billion on COVID. This announcement comes following President Biden's request for emergency pandemic funding. The funds will go towards testing, vaccines, and treatment. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says this package will give the federal government and citizens the needed tools to recover economically. But White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says the amount is less than what the Biden administration asked Congress to approve. Well, for more on these stories, let's bring in Arise correspondent Dan Warren. Dan, thank you for joining me. Now, the probe on the Capitol Hill protest is being extended to more pro-Trump figures. What's the committee hoping to get out of Ivanka?
Now, that's a very good question. Now, we do know that, we believe we know, it's actually NBC News in the United States has said that they believe right now, right this very moment, that Ivanka is testifying. No one is yet sure whether it is virtually or whether it's in person. Now, Ivanka is seen as basically the bridge between the facts that they know so far. Now, as we've been reporting, as we've been almost putting pieces of the puzzle together, there was a 7-hour gap of White House phone records on January the 6th. Now, it's understood that Ivanka Trump was around at that point and is a critical part to actually know what conversations went on. We do know that the reason why there was a 7-hour gap with the phone records is that the president at the time, Donald Trump, was using his own personal phone, not White House phones, to make these calls. She's seen also as a voice of reason. It's understood by some sources that despite some noble requests from Mike Pence's team and even Mark Meadows, the chief of staff at the time, to say, tell the protesters, President, to go home. He declined that. She went back into the room to say to President Trump at the time, you know, you must send them home. So she's seen as this voice of reason and somebody that actually he listened to. That another criticism of the former president was that he didn't listen to many people. She is seen as this key bridge, and that they're hoping that they can finally get some more information to clarify what happened during the build-up, and more importantly, what happened on the 6th of January.
Well, indeed, Ivanka's attempt to persuade her father to call off the rioters during the protest is very crucial in this case. But do you think she's likely to say anything that will compromise him?
Well, we know that her and her father are very close, so I don't think we're going to see a situation where she's suddenly got a load of dirty laundry, so to speak, to air, and where things can potentially go wrong, or go wrong for President Trump's hopes of another run in 2024. There is actually some valid criticism at the moment about the way that this investigation is taking place, because usually when an investigation happens and you're writing a report, what you do is you interview everybody. The panel concludes, publishes a report to the citizens, to the politicians, to the media, and then it can get scrutinized. But what we're seeing now is parts of evidence being released through sources that are unnamed and or anonymous, because they want to protect their position. So what we're getting is parts that are speculation, parts that are actually concrete evidence, and in effect we're seeing a full-on investigation that's transparent when they want it to be, and then behind closed doors, like right now, when they don't want it to be. So I do believe that they're not going to be that further forward. She will probably just clarify reports of what certain people said during the morning of the 6th of January.
Okay, well, let's turn to the latest U.S. COVID funding, a new deal of $10 billion by the Senate. But of course, without global vaccine funds, how fair is this deal?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, as you said, it wasn't enough that for the Biden administration, they wanted $22.5 billion, but that was to include global aid. 10 billion in the US was seen as a compromise. Apparently, Democrats wanted 10 billion for domestic and 5 billion for worldwide. And there's come to this compromise of 10 billion only. According to Mitt Romney, a prominent Republican, it's not going to cost Americans any more because it's part of the money's been taken from another bill. There is concern that despite the fact that the country is suffering from severe COVID fatigue. Now, I'm actually here in Orlando Airport. In fact, just through that window there is the main security concourse. And just wandering through there about an hour ago when I was checking in for my flight back to the UK, couldn't believe the amount of people that weren't wearing masks, despite the fact that there is a federal mandate requiring you to wear a mask. Whereas in California, when I was traveling there last week, it was interesting that if you didn't have a mask, they weren't even letting you through security. They wouldn't let you check in. They were even handing out masks at check-in. So the fact is the country is so split over the way they're actually handling the law of COVID that for Republicans to basically find the money elsewhere is probably the best compromise from their side they could do, because it's quite clear from their voters they've had enough. But there is fears that if we've seen variants of variants, we've obviously at Christmas it was the Omicron surge, then we saw the BA2 surge from Omicron more recently, that if more and more variants come from overseas to the US, they could be back to square one. So that's why they're saying 10 billion isn't enough. There is now talk that there could be another bill in a few months' time that would actually focus on worldwide funding.
And Dan, just before I let you go, having reduced this COVID spending by more than 10 billion, what impact will this have globally?
Well, globally, it's a huge issue. I mean, USAID, which is an organization that basically was going to work with developing countries and basically countries that haven't been vaccinated, that haven't got the infrastructures. We know a lot of the vaccines, especially the Pfizer and the Moderna, need real special protocol when basically carrying them, when transporting them, when securing them and storing them, because of certain temperatures, ultra low temperatures that needs to be kept at. Now, the US aid was going to fully cooperate and provide infrastructure for lots of countries across for Africa, where they've had to rely on the AstraZeneca vaccine, which doesn't require such cold temperatures. USAID have said they can't help anymore unless more money is sent their way. So this is really going to affect countries. And there's around about 2 billion of the world's population that are yet to be vaccinated and want to be vaccinated. Just because more developed countries, particularly the Western world, have got vaccinated, it doesn't mean to say this is over. There is a long way to go. And as far as the medical experts say, the money is nowhere near enough. And the Western world, or the developed world, will have this on their hands should another pandemic break out.
Well, very well said, Dan. Thank you very much for all of that update.
This is Arise America.